Hello everybody, this is Jason from c2access.com. I just finished a front office training session with a client. It's now one office, and I wanted to record or at least give everybody out there an idea of the things that I would start to tackle post implementation of a front office conversion, and some of the things that I think that are going to come up for you in your firm, and some issues to get out in front of. So as you can see behind me, this is kind of the big picture of a lot of the pieces of front office ProLaw and some of the things that I would start looking at. And so I'm just going to go ahead and jump in. I wrote this along the top because I think it's very true that ProLaw is the tool to solve firm issues, but it doesn't necessarily mean that those solutions are pre-configured, unfortunately. Sometimes we do have to kind of invent using the framework of ProLaw tracking mechanisms or processes to solve these problems. And what type of problems? Having a single place for firm contacts, or making sure that all of our docketing needs are met in all of the jurisdictions, or closing files and what are the steps and the documents that are necessary to close a file properly. Like, what are those standards for our firm, for your firm? And how do we codify them and make sure that they're met all the time? So anyway, jump in, just a quick recap. The way that I think about ProLaw is that it's very matter-centric, and so everything really starts from a matter. Remember that we're also usually, or we should be, tying in contacts into the matter. So all of the contacts in a matter, whether or not they are internal or external, should be tracked either contacts or via professionals. Inside of all of the contacts, we have different ways that we can codify things. Making sure that we have a proper billing and vendor contact for the back office people, and usually I like to keep those separate from the front office. And then on the front office side, we can create contacts for opposing counsels, judges, witnesses, clients, so on and so forth. Sometimes we're going to want to put information in such a way in contacts that we can pull it into templates as well. Back to the matter, making sure that we have processes for all of our Westlaw legal calendaring rules, making sure that we're assigning our professionals with intent. Inside of each one of the matters, we want to make sure that we have very defined areas of law. Sometimes we have to import all of the areas of laws that existed prior, but we're not real sure why. But I think it's a really good opportunity after you do a migration to look at our areas of law and see if they meet our needs. Now, the purpose for me for areas of law is mostly custom tabs. Remember that your area of law determines your custom tab. So as soon as I set it, the litigation area of law, and assuming that I have a litigation custom tab, then that custom tab would show up. And so we want to look at these and make sure that that they meet our needs. And then hopefully, Maurice just said in the last roadmap that hopefully eventually we'll be able to turn off ones that we don't need anymore. So right now we just drop them to the bottom of the list with a Z dash, but eventually we'll be able to make them inactive. Along with those areas of law, we need to make sure that we have our proper matter type listings. This is one of those things that really kind of gets flushed out post implementation, in my opinion, and really, is very client centric on how we open the matter types, but there's definitely some thought that can go into those matter types and make sure that they're being assigned properly. And then really, the reason that I like to do all this area of law work that ties to custom tabs, and really it also ties into the document templates, but we don't want to link it back to rule sets. So one of the things that I like to do, and hopefully everybody does something pretty similar, is that we want to link rule sets to our area of law, because so often we'll have bankruptcy document types that don't need to be in litigation. A litigation doesn't need to be in bankruptcy. Or even better, the WC in this one is workers' compensation group. And so a workers' compensation group is not going to need the same thing as bankruptcy. And so if we can split the document types into rule sets, then when you go into a specific matter with that area of law with the right rule set, then we're only looking at the 10 document types that we need, versus for the whole firm, we might have 500. Now, why does that matter? Why not just put them all in there globally? Well, a couple things. The biggest issue is for training. And especially when we're first starting out, we want to make sure that the system is intuitive to use. And I think one of the ways that we can make the system intuitive is when we properly show the information that's relevant to that user at the proper time. And what that means is when we go into a matter to add a document type, and it's a workers' comp, what value does seeing a litigation document type bring us? I would argue none. And as a matter of fact, I would actually argue the opposite, that it creates inefficiencies, because every time that you have to scroll over or somebody is looking at non-related document types for that area of law, that's wasted time. I just see it as that way, and every minute of wasted time is valuable because they add up, unfortunately, at the end of the day. But there is some reasons to have global defaults. Now, basically, one of the things that I look at post-implementation is basically what are our pro-law administration needs. And I think that really is what most of this work boils down to. And I think that most medium to large size law firms should have a dedicated pro-law administrator. I think there's too much here to manage for a firm administrator part-time, and and really what that ends up being is 10 hours a week, and I just don't think that's enough for most large instances. Because one of the big things that we want to constantly manage is our document types, and we want to do this at a high level, and preferably with somebody that doesn't have preferences. And so often I'll see a litigation paralegal assigned to be a pro-law administrator, but he or she only cares about their piece of the world, and then all of the other areas of law go to crap. And they do. Because this person that's managing this process doesn't care about 2, 3, and 4. They only care about 1. And I just don't think, and again, it just gets back to inefficiencies that we want to make sure that we nip in the bud. So if we put a pro-law administrator umbrella or somebody responsible for managing this stuff holistically, then I think we're going to get a better system at the end of the day. Again, we have rule states in here. We also can create custom dockets that we'll also want to tie down here. So I'm working with a firm out on the West Coast right now. They do collection suits, and they want to make sure that they always do these 8 different filings, but they don't want to go through all of the Westlaw legal calendaring rules. And this happens a lot on the plaintiff side, but we can create custom dockets for a specific rule set, for a specific area of law, even for a specific matter type, although you can't turn it on or off by matter type. But we could have just a class action suit filing internal docket, custom docket, that says do this at day 1, this at day 10, this at day 20, this at day 90. We can totally do that. And so basically these custom rules along with the Westlaw legal calendaring rules allows us to do all of our firm docketing. The custom side is usually where I will solve regulatory issues, or if there's any docketing that are non-standard, not federal rules, but like workers' comp is a great example. If we have affirmative deadlines that we must meet through some authority that the Westlaw legal calendaring rules don't solve, that's where we use custom docketing. It's pretty standard in the industry. I think most people do it. Most software systems do it. Now, the next thing is custom tabs. And when we're designing custom tabs, even going forward, and you might have gotten the initial layout of ProLaw when you did the migration, but a lot of times it's all Greek, right? You have no idea what those explanations are actually meaning. And once you start using the system and filling out this information, then I think it becomes much more concrete what we need to do. But basically, inside of these custom tabs, what are some things that we typically will see tracked? Settlement. So let's say the insurance company every year wants a total breakdown of settlements by client. And so we probably want to put all of that information in a custom tab so that way we can pull it into a report automatically. Do we have any insurance tracking needs? Sometimes I've seen some clients with multiple policies at play, and so we need to track not only the primary insurer, but secondary and additional insureds as well, including claim number, policy number, contact, claim rep. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, and maybe that's something that we'll take care of in custom tabs. A lot of times the templates drive the custom tabs. So for example, if we have a lot of pleading templates that we're trying to create, we think that's going to bring the most efficiency for our firm. We want to look at the templates and match those templates. What blanks, what on a matter by matter basis do we need to fill in maybe a custom pleading tab? Remembering that we have some default fields that we can also pull, like client sort we can pull, matter description we can pull, contacts associated with the matter we can pull. So there's a lot of information that we can pull. Remember, contacts, templates, custom tabs. But we really want to drive the custom tab management for either reporting needs or template needs, in my opinion, for the most part. There might be some additional client info. The biggest thing I see here is with insurance defense firms, a lot of times we'll need to send over with the tracking or claim number in the subject line, or we just need to save it somewhere in the matter. So this is definitely something that gets put in custom tabs. Once we start building a lot of data, this is really kind of what I enjoy doing the most, to be honest with you, is I love to do custom reporting, and a lot of times we'll do custom reporting, you know, for specific attorneys, to look at, maybe we need to do case reassignments. Sometimes I'll do custom reporting just for QA purposes to make sure that we're not making any mistakes in the system. And I just wrote one yesterday for a client, which was they're bidding on new work, and part of that work required that they submit a litigation listing of the last 7 years. And so I was able to put together a litigation listing of 500 matters in the past and 50 active matters, and we took what probably would have been a, I don't know, 18 to 40 hour job for a paralegal to do that summary of past litigation. I wrote the report once, and so it's done forever, but I mean, it took me 6 hours. And again, that work is reusable, which, by the way, so I've been thinking about this for a little while. I've been a ProLaw administrator for 10 years, and I've been consulting now for going over 2 now. And what is the keys to success for a law firm? And I think it's really 2 things: do smart work and get paid for it. And this is kind of what I'm getting down to, and why I think ProLaw is such a great tool is because that's smart work, right? How can we return value to the client on top of what we already do? Because all law firms are going to work the matter, right? I mean, and if they don't work the matter, then they get fired. But everybody works the matter. For me, ProLaw provides all of the tools to work smarter. That's what we're trying to do, and I think that's a really good example of, you know, being able to provide value to the client very quickly, based off of the system that we need to manage our firm anyway. A few other things that I wanted to cover for document processing. This is again after a front office implementation. So this came up at the last firm that I was helping. Once we migrate from a paper system to a paperless system, and especially one that is ProLaw centric, well, how do we take materials home to work on the weekend, right? How do you grab a pile of motion practice that you want to review on Sunday morning over coffee? How do you do that? My argument would be is that we need to create a remote access system that works for you and your people. Some other things that you can work on post-implementation: large data file ingestions, large exports, how you're going to handle emails. I think all of those kind of things of you know, document processing are things that you want to look at post-implementation. At all times, we're always wanting to do a cleanup, and this is, I always like to identify several people internal to the organization that are smart and will raise their hand when they see something silly. Usually this is a paralegal or 4, but basically what I'm saying is when we need somebody or a group of people, when they're going through matters and working matters, and they're seeing that there's no email saved, or they're seeing that somebody's, you know, obviously dragging and dropping all of their documents and never getting, we need to identify those people so that we can follow up and get better training. And then also, you know, new tools that might come online. Who's keeping track of those new tools that are available to you and your firm, making sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck? So are you using the ProLaw app? Are you using Matters View? Are you using Portal? Those are all things that we have. The journals import that's come online in 2018 too. And there's just a lot of tools out there that ProLaw has added to add value to the software. But if you don't know about it, you're not getting that added value. So it's something that's helpful when you designate a ProLaw administrator. Some of the things that I like to look at front office implementation: new client procedures. You know, what are our conflict checks looking like? How are we assigning rates? Are we using client files? Those are all things that I like to look at. New matter procedures: who's adding contacts? Who's assigning profs? How is that prof assignment working? Usually intake is doing our most important data entry, and so I really like to make sure that we're rock solid on getting date received, date filed, maybe getting the basic pleading caption filled out, maybe you're transcribing the causes of action, maybe the intake person is doing the initial answer deadline. There's all kinds of things that can happen in that new matter procedure. Usually our new matter person's pretty quick, and so I like to overload them, to be honest with you, and really start off ProLaw from a matter-centric way on the right foot. And so that's why I think the new matter procedures are just so important. Reporting I touched on earlier. I have not been very successful in conveying the value that we can get out of our attorney reporting. I just haven't. I can't get through to some attorneys about how vital this is. But what I'm saying by attorney scope reporting is that we can automatically, via the report queue, identify matters not worked, past due, upcoming projects, all open matter summaries by field completion, time summaries. There's just a lot of information that we can give the attorneys automatically at times that we think that they might look at it via email. And I just think it's an underutilized resource in most firms. I think one of the values of using a system like ProLaw is that we can pull out metrics and give those metrics to the end users to make them better in their day in and day out job. We should be able to create summaries of their work that is helpful to them so that they can work smarter and they can do smart work and get paid. Managed scope. So this is, I think, for many years, I told attorneys that ProLaw would make them better and faster. And I think that now that's still true, but I think the one huge advantage that ProLaw has is from a management point of view. The ability for a named partner or a managing partner to look down at the details and to look at the active docket count, the active matter count, the resolved matter count, to really look, matter types, to do a breakdown by area of law and matter type, by professional gives the managing partners the ability to truly manage their law firms in a smart, data-driven way. And then QA scope. This is something that I've done for some of my larger clients, and I think it's the best way to do it. People make mistakes. Even if we train them, if you have a person does the same job 10,000 times a year, some small factor, they're going to make a mistake. It happens. We're all human. So what I like to do is I like to create weekly QA scope reports that just identify problems that you are finding in your organization and then automatically report those things. Best example is not having a date received. Like, let's say that's a require a date field for every single matter that we get in. Well, then let's just go ahead and flag it in a front office QA report. All of these 6 matters don't have date received. We can also do it on the billing side. This recently came up from another one of my clients, that if you do not have a billing contact added to a matter, it won't bill. Makes sense, right? But we think that we're billing it because we're hitting all of these we're saying this client ID run bills, but then we have 5 that don't work. So that, again, that's a back office QA scope report that I like to run. These open matters with don't have a billing contact, and then that gives you the opportunity to go in and fix them on a weekly basis. Training. So one of the things that I think is very important to realize is that just because you've been using ProLaw for 6 months or 2 years doesn't mean that the guy that you hire next week does. And I find that many attorneys have a huge disconnect between when they used to have to learn the system to today. And so I just think it's very important to identify a true training regimen with somebody dedicated to it and that they know what they're talking about. Because the training is going to flow through that professional's entire career at a minimum the first 3 to 6 months before they figure out that they were told something wrong. And again, I want to work smart, I want to get paid, and having poor training doesn't meet either one of those baselines. I also like to customize and tailor my training for the professional type, right? It kind of makes sense. You don't want to have the same spiel or the same training outlined for an attorney as you do as an assistant. Now, often the attorney gets more because they have to understand what the assistant responsibilities are, but there's no reason to give an attorney training to an assistant when 40% of it doesn't apply to them. So we try to give customized training. I think that's important to set up. And then, you know, one of the other things that I think is really vital to success is to make sure that we have follow-up training. Are you identifying issues with your professionals today, right? Who isn't saving documents properly? Who isn't marking past due dockets done? Who has matters that have been open for 2 years? Who doesn't bill except for at the end of the month? Those are all metrics that we need to pull up and then do follow-up training so that we are working smarter and getting paid. Professionals is something that I just kind of put down there at the bottom, making sure that we're managing our security group smartly. We're not creating a new security group every time somebody has a new need, that we're actually looking at what's out there and making updates. Making sure that we're doing cleanup with our professionals. We are paying ProLaw based off of our active number of licenses. So there's no reason for you to have 10 people who are gone and you still have them marked as an active license. You're paying for that every year unnecessarily. And then hopefully with some upcoming changes, we're going to eventually be able to roll in some HR stuff into the professionals tab too, because we're going to be able to turn it off by security group. Back office, front office, this is just, I think it's sometimes good to have a ProLaw administrator / referee to kind of get in the middle of these things. There are some functions where either the front office side of the house or the back office side of the house is going to win. Somebody's going to be like, no, they get preference. And when does that happen and why? Docketing I touched on earlier, custom setup, custom maintenance, and then making sure that we're getting our Westlaw legal calendaring rules updated. If nobody's responsible for doing that monthly, somebody needs to be. Making sure that we're getting system updates done. Are we doing any archiving? Do we need that? Do we need any configuration changes as our needs change? Are we staying up to date? Don't get more than a year behind in ProLaw versions. It's just not good. I will say that there was a while that we had a few bugs out there that were annoying, but almost always in all IT things, the answer is to upgrade. It just is. All of the development time is going to be spent in the most current version. So if you're constantly being frustrated, but you're 2 versions behind, that's your fault. We need to get you upgraded so that way you can look at the software as it's intended to be delivered from the developers. And then lastly, especially as we grow, so I find that some front office implementations will run great on day 1, but day 180 or a day 365, not so much. So we need to constantly make sure that our system is being optimized. There's indexes that we can build, there's archiving that we can do, there's configuration changes that we can do in your overall network. So if you find that as the amount of data is increasing, your speed's going down, that's why you need a ProLaw admin. So anyway, these are a few of the things that I would look at post front office implementation. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Jason at c2axis.com, c2axis.com. And yeah, good luck. Take it piece by piece, you'll get there.